Record. Hi, I'm Chris Colvin. I'm the founder of In the House. We're a community for general counsel and other in-house counsel. And we have a variety of programs to help people in our community succeed in their careers and also help their legal departments be more successful in their mission of serving their corporate clients. So this is one of our monthly meetings. We have a monthly cybersecurity and privacy working group meeting. And my partner in these monthly meetings is David Heckler. He's the editor-in-chief of Tag Cyber Law Journal. And David is a eminent journalist for many years in the legal field and was the executive editor of Corporate Counsel magazine, among many other roles that he's had in the legal journalism field. So it's great to have David as my partner with these monthly events. David also writes an interview and posts an interview with our guest each month. And so we'll be making those available to you as well. So we're delighted to have Melissa Koch here today. And Melissa is a CEO in the relatively new compliance tech space, which is an exciting area of the legal services ecosystem. And the way these sessions usually work is David usually leads the Q&A. I sort of jump in with questions from time to time. And then you all are invited, all the participants. You won't see, if you're watching the recording, we've turned the video off for the non-participants, but you may hear their voices if they have questions. You can also ask questions in the Zoom chat window, so feel free to do that. So David, let me pass the mic to you and let you lead the discussion here, and I'll be quiet for a while.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome, Melissa Koch.
Thanks for having me.
Founder and CEO of InFront Compliance. What I'd like to do is ask you a question that kind of introduces you at the same time. You're a lawyer who's worked for more than 2 decades with a special interest throughout in technology. You've worked in-house at a couple of large companies. And you've worked at 2 law firms. In fact, you're still working as of counsel at one of those law firms, Ackerman in Orlando, Florida. And along the way, you acquired an MBA. So you've got lots of credentials. But the big move was that you founded InFront Compliance, which had a hard launch in March. You've been working on it for a couple of years. Now you're in the CEO seat. What made you decide to do that? And how did you make it happen?
Wow. Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and to participate. You did a really great job of summarizing kind of some of the elements of my career path. And so what I would say in terms of how we got here, especially with InFront and being the CEO, for me, it's been a very natural progression. As you quickly picked up on, technology has been a theme throughout my career. And I've been a lawyer, a business technology and data lawyer for over 20 years. And I've seen so many changes and so many different ways of doing business. And it really helped me not only in my law firm roles, but being in-house as well. And being able to always stay close to what technology is, what technology offers, how it can solve real problems. And what I found especially is that certain industries have embraced technology much more than others. Certain technologies have embraced their industries more than others. And what I mean by that is, for us at InFront in particular, our approach to compliance is something that has really been designed around the people in compliance. And that has taken on a different meaning, especially in recent years. And since this is the cybersecurity and privacy group, I'm sure everyone in this group understand that these issues are much more ecosystem based. And when we're talking about technology and we're talking about compliance and we're talking about privacy, people from all over the organization have a role to play. And so how I ended up at InFront was really kind of observing how these ecosystems were evolving and realizing that the tools for the job, especially around compliance, just weren't satisfactory. The way that I characterize it is that oftentimes they were providing organizations a false sense of security when it comes to understanding their risk. So in terms of kind of how I got here and how I got to InFront, it was a way to build a solution so that organizations could understand not only their internal risk profile, but their risk relative to their third-party partners. And our approach to compliance really has taken into account not only the usability, but the expertise that is required to do so. So for me, getting to be the CEO and help navigate the course of the company, it's really designed to provide a solution that is much different in the way that we bring collaboration, standardization, and scale to the compliance process, which is very much part of my experience that I picked up throughout my career. It utilizes technology in a way that we think is a lot of fun and very interesting for the industry participants, but most of all drives a lot of value for our customers and drives a lot of value for the reg tech, compliance tech space overall. And in terms of how I got here, as I mentioned, it has been a very natural progression in terms of leading teams, in terms of being a solutions provider and solutions oriented, and also making sure I bring my systems thinking skills, my design thinking skills, and my creativity to what I think is a very important, very mission critical job for those of us who have compliance as part of our mantle of responsibility.
So I want to make sure we get cybersecurity and in-house lawyers into this conversation early.
Mm-hmm.
You told me that you think in-house lawyers in particular could benefit from using your platform to assess where their companies are and to improve their cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
How does technology, your technology in particular, help in this area? And why do you think lawyers in particular could help themselves as well by using it?
Well, so let's kind of back it up a little bit and why I think it's so important for lawyers to be hands-on when it comes to cybersecurity. There are very few businesses out there that aren't in some way, shape, or form technology enabled. And whether that's technology that they're running internally, or again, if they're running on third-party vendor technology, we find often it's a 50-50 split. And when it comes to the lawyer's role in protecting organizations and helping organizations grow, understanding the commensurate risks that come with technology it's a really big deal. And so becoming fluent and becoming familiar with cybersecurity is something that I think every modern lawyer needs to have. But it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And in fact, I'd say in some respects, it's kind of equal and opposite to being a lawyer. We have a language that we speak that not everybody else speaks. There's a language to cybersecurity. There's a language to technology that IT professionals and cybersecurity professionals and CISOs speak that lawyers don't speak. So there's opportunity here once you recognize it in that particular fashion to kind of educate yourself on why it's important and what it all means. But making sure you have tools in your toolkit that help you access that is really where we fit in. So our approach to compliance is that we take very complex regulatory, operational, and cybersecurity compliance frameworks, and we translate those into plain language Q&A. So we do the heavy lift on interpreting what that means and putting them into assessment form. So if you're in-house counsel and you know you want your vendors to be compliant with certain cybersecurity frameworks, whether those are general or tied to, for example, NIST 800-171 or 53 or some of the other frameworks that are out there, you kind of have to figure out what that means, not only from kind of a controls perspective, but practically, what are the functional requirements? And we broke that down. A, because we needed to, and B, because we see an important place for it. So to have a tool that in-house counsel can rely on, that gives them confidence that they're asking the right questions and more importantly, getting the right answers so that they can make informed decisions, that's something that we think is incredibly important from a communications perspective, but also from a skill set perspective.
You launched a business in March,
Mm-hmm.
just on the cusp of the pandemic really gaining steam in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that must have been quite a challenge.
It was quite a challenge. I think like every startup and even every company back in March, when they were realizing that that work is going to look different, the economy is going to look different, what people's needs are going to look different. I mean, we had to take a step back and evaluate what this is going to look like. I mean, luckily for us, we're an online platform, we're a SaaS platform, so we're accessible anywhere, and that was extremely helpful. Kind of as an initial matter. We're also a remote team, so that is also extremely helpful. We didn't have any disruption with the shift. But what we found and what has been very beneficial for us is that because our approach to compliance is different, and because our approach to compliance is accessible from anywhere, we've been able to accelerate into the quarantine aspects of doing work. And so being able to manage compliance processes remotely via platform with standardized assessments and collaboration tools and reporting tools, all of that has become extremely helpful for our clients who do work differently now and who are conducting their compliance activity a lot differently now.
So David, could I piggyback on that question? Because I have it reminded me of a related question I have, and then we could open up for general questions. It sounds like that's what you're about to do. Just a quick follow-up. So thank you for sharing your own story, Melissa. I think that's fascinating, and especially the part about opening a business in the sort of right into the teeth of a global pandemic. That's fascinating. One thing that I'd love to hear from you is we hear a lot about the challenges that a lot of lawyers are going through now and are anticipated as the pandemic drags on and the related economic challenges grind on, and especially in-house lawyers residing on or being perceived as residing on the cost side of a business. So there's a lot of challenges that we're reading about. Let's flip the script a little bit. Do you see any opportunities from your perch in the legal services ecosystem? Do you see any opportunities for lawyers in the current environment? And what are those opportunities in the compliance and or sort of cybersecurity and privacy spaces?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think when you have any sort of crisis, especially of this scale, you have to take a step back and take a look. And again, with legal in particular, maybe being slightly behind the curve of some other industries in terms of adopting technology, and also being behind the curve and having technologies built specifically for them by people who are experienced enough to deliver value services in this particular area. I think there's a little bit of catch up, but I also think that now more than ever, legal operations becomes really important. Legal technology becomes really important. Thinking about the tools that will drive efficiency and deliver value. For us, when we work with clients and we and I'm speaking on the InFront side for just a moment. We have metrics, and I know a lot of internal legal teams now do as well. They tend to be spend driven and efficiency driven, but driving risk reduction, I think, is another one that becomes really important when in-house counsel is tasked with protecting the business overall. So when you scan the landscape for tools that are going to help, and you scan the landscape for tools that are going to deliver value, how you quantify that and how you measure that is something that becomes paramount. Now, what I will also say is legal teams also vary in terms of kind of criticality when it comes to key performance indicators or key risk indicators and metrics that they set for themselves and relative to their internal team, and by extension, their outside counsel or whomever else they're relying on. But this is an opportunity, I think, to be very disciplined, to take a step back and maybe reformulate and revisit those areas of of your in-house practice that that could really benefit from more technology-enabled solutions that can drive efficiencies, and also give you visibility and accountability from your service providers when it comes to delivering value. So there are tools out there and billing systems and things like that a lot of in-house counsel use, but even being more expansive on that is something I think that in-house counsel can really benefit from. And also holding your service providers accountable, whether that is by way of fee accountability or work product accountability, making sure that they're delivering the work product in a way that really works for you and your team. And that could be changing as well. I mean, everybody who is now working from home, in some respects, there's been a little bit more informality in the communications and the way that everyone connects. In some instances, that's appropriate. In some instances, not. But I think here, again, enabling yourself and your team in a way that you have solutions that work for you and work for your organization is a big part of what I see in-house counsel doing.
Right. I love that. I love the 2 points you made with regard to taking stock of your internal operations and how the work from home environment kind of creates an opportunity to do that almost paradoxically. But I also love the point about looking at your outside service providers, and that could be everything from a greater variety of law firms to different legal technology providers to maybe alternative legal service providers. And use one thing I'm always encouraging GCs and AGCs to do is you have this bully pulpit as the buy side, and you can use that, and there's nothing wrong with using that. You want great relationships with your providers. You can also use that leverage you have to encourage more creativity and rethink how those relationships work and to demand more. So anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So we'll pause for questions, see if any of you have questions. Let me just reiterate something we said earlier. Some people join later. If you enable your video, you will appear on the screen. That's fine. We encourage you to do that. If you don't, you can still ask questions. We'll unmute everybody in a minute. There's also the chat window on the bottom. If you take your cursor down to the bottom, there's a chat window. If you put a question, if you type a question in there, we will read it and get it to Melissa when the opportunity arises. We do have Melissa Koch, founder and CEO of InFront Compliance, also of Counsel Ackerman. She's doing both jobs. And she's with us to talk about both compliance and what made her decide to found and become the CEO of the company. So let's unmute. Chris, can you unmute everybody?
Yeah, I think
there are
let me just, I'm going to unmute, let me mute all and unmute all. Let's see. Mute all and unmute all. Let's see. I'm having, okay, I need to unmute. I'm having a little bit of a tech issue with this. I'm trying to unmute all. All right, let me just unmute. So I think I actually think that people are unmuted now. So what you have to do is just unmute yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
unmute yourself.
Okay,
yep.
So feel free to do that and jump in with a question now, or if you want to ask a question in the chat window, you can also specify that you'd like to ask it yourself. That's fine, or we'll read it for you. Either way is okay with us.
Yep, and we can't see the people that have their video turned off. Obviously, we can't see you if you're gesturing or that. Even electronically, we wouldn't see the electronically raised hands. So feel free to jump in and just use your voice or type into the chat window. If not, then Dave and I can always fill airtime ourselves because we have a really interesting guest today. But speak up anytime, folks, and ask questions because we have a great expert here in the compliance tech space to share with us.
Here's one that you emphasized in the, there is an interview I did that we will post with Melissa that we will post on the resource page for our group. And one of the issues that we discussed was spreadsheets, how spreadsheets and other manual processes introduce compliance risks, especially into a remote-only workforce. Can you talk about, which is one of the big factors that led you to decide that you had a solution and the time had come. You want to talk about those risks a little bit?
Sure, and I'm also gonna kind of use this as an opportunity. It looks like there's a complimentary question in the group chat around what are the specific projects our company offers to augment in-house departments. So, so what our platform is designed to do is to help organizations move past spreadsheets and checklists as the main mode of running compliance. And so what we've seen at InFront, myself and my co-founder, is that many organizations, it kind of doesn't matter how large or how well resourced they are. For the most part, they're using spreadsheets and checklists to house their list of requirements and controls. They send that either internally for internal audit or to third parties to measure risk. And it's challenging. So we've seen everything from the checklists and the spreadsheets getting adulterated to those being filled out by personnel that don't have the qualifications to actually respond, to them getting lost in email, to them not being updated for years, and worst case scenario, we've seen decades at a time. And so that's why when I talk about compliance being done under current methods, I refer to it as providing a false sense of security, because without standardization, without expertise always being updated, without collaboration tools, there are a lot of items that fall through the cracks. And so when we built the platform, we designed the platform that it's incredibly usable. We spent a lot of time on usability. We have expertise built in, which I mentioned before by way of plain language. And we have compliance management tools, everything from reporting to setting automated notifications for updates and things like that, including when requirements change. And so specifically to put it into context and how our tool augments or adds skill set and bandwidth to internal legal teams, is that our tool is used to measure not only internal compliance but third party. So you can rely on the tool for the assessment process and for the reporting and then ongoing compliance process. So if you are a subscriber to our platform, you have that tool available to you. So when you are assessing internal processes for compliance risk, and that could be everything from cybersecurity, because I know that's extremely relevant, to privacy. We have GDPR and CCPA modules as well. To third parties, you're able to do that in a very consistent, updated, and current fashion, much easier than you're able to do under existing methods, as well as under systems that weren't necessarily designed for this. So when we talk about freeing up resources, you don't need teams now out, scouring what the most current requirements are or relying on externals for that. You have that built in. You also have a platform that gives you a lot more confidence and reliability and a defensible position should you be examined or investigated in the event of a breach or another compliance infraction.
You just mentioned the GDPR. Your platform handles privacy compliance, and just last week, the U.S. privacy world was kind of sent into a bit of a turmoil when a European Union court ruled that so-called privacy shield doesn't sufficiently protect European citizens, European Union citizens, when their data is accessed on U.S. computers. Has this ruling thrown InFront Compliance into a tizzy of your own?
So for us, we are the assessment tool. So we are the way to determine whether or not you're in compliance personally still with your privacy practices, or whether your third parties are as well. So we're a lens that allows for a lot of visibility and transparency into that. We've been following it very closely, and to your point, for those organizations that were relying on Privacy Shield, yeah, this is a decision that throws a lot of organizations into turmoil. For us, our job is to make sure that the organizations that we serve have the tools that they need to make their own informed decisions as to whether or not the SECs are understandable and being held up and enforceable in a way that gives meaning to the obligations under the different privacy regimes.
Is it a challenge when a ruling comes out that has large ramifications to make adjustments to your platform quickly
For us, that's our job. So we monitor for all of the frameworks that we maintain in our library. We monitor them extremely closely, all the authoritative sources. And so if there is a change, we're able to roll it out extremely quickly. Our clients get notified in near real time when a change occurs that affects a potential control or a potential requirement that is in their compliance set, and then can cascade that out to all our affected stakeholders. So for us, that's one of the critical parts, is making sure that our customers are always current with what applies in the marketplace.
This might be a good time to bring up your co-founder, Leah Luria, who worked with you at Ackerman for a number of years and then left to go elsewhere. But she has first of all, you were side by side at Ackerman, and you were in regular communication, and you both had issues with compliance that you've actually already come into. But she has a skill set that was a very nice match with yours. Do you want to talk a little bit about that partnership?
Sure. And I think it's helpful to the extent anybody here is interested in kind of a non-traditional path and a very traditional career. For us, Aaliyah is a software developer prior to being a lawyer. So she's also a business and technology and data lawyer by trade. But she also has that software development background, and she also has experience co-architecting an expert system prior to InFront. So for us to have her on the team has been fantastic, and we do see the compliance world in a very similar way. So building a solution for that makes a big difference. And so we have gotten a couple of additional questions. So the first is, does the compliance system also include document storage capacity? Is it a document management system as well? We do have the ability to upload and maintain artifacts in connection with compliance requirements, and they're associated, which is nice. So if you have a requirement supporting policies or insurance certificates or reports, all of that gets associated with that requirement, and that gets stored digitally as part of the report. So in some respects, it is a document management system. It's not quite like a contract management system, but that record is always there, and we do have the ability to do that. So that's something that we offer. And then the second question is, do you employ your own patented hardware and software to accomplish privacy compliance? We do have some proprietary technology. This is all software driven. We're not a hardware driven solution. We're a software driven solution that we've developed and that we own. And so we do have IP rights in that technology. And then both with my background, with Aaliyah's background, we do kind of actively look for aspects of the platform that are patentable, that we can monitor very closely. We have applied for a patent, and we have a couple of pending that we are continuing to pursue. So the technology that we utilize in the platform in and of itself is proprietary, and we follow protocol internally around that quite closely. And then there's another question, does it employ AI via OCR to read the compliance or actually review? So for us, the way that we use some of these more advanced technologies is our platform is set up for machine learning, particularly around keeping the requirements up to date much more efficiently. That's what drives our ability to help keep the libraries current much faster. We don't use AI or those tools to actually review any of the responses. In fact, that's something that we made a strategic decision, that any of the responses that come back in the assessments are between you and whoever you're communicating with on the platform. They're encrypted even as to us at the field level. So the determination as to whether or not the response sets are sufficient from a compliance perspective based on your risk appetite is something that is an internal decision. We don't go in, we don't provide professional services that go in and say, okay, well, now you're certified. We do have attestation that everything is as complete and accurate as the respondent can attest to, but we don't make determinations as to overall compliance or certified compliance. I love these questions, by the way. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is we've got a really robust response from
Yeah,
our
the chat
audience here.
the chat window is really active today, which is great. I do have a question if nobody else does, and that this relates to sort of from my own perspective. There's been a trend in really over the past decade in going from the legal department as sort of a fortress unto itself to being much more doing much more outreach to other departments and making sure that you mentioned KPIs, measuring the success of the legal department in serving the objectives of the company as well as the internal clients of the legal department. And also the technology has gradually infiltrated the legal department. And so there's entrenched systems now within the legal department that also interact with larger company systems. Sometimes they're standalone within legal, sometimes they're part of a larger solution for the company. So with those increased connections, both personal connections and technology connections, how does your solution, I guess one question is, who else other than the in-house lawyers interact with your system, and in what way? IT, legal ops, if there's a separate compliance department, outside vendors, how do they plug into your system? And how do you play nicely with other corporate systems and other legal department systems that may be part of the fabric of the legal department?
Oh, that's a great question. So we interoperate in both ways. So from a technology perspective, and this is something that goes to one of the earlier questions that I think is important for in-house counsel to kind of keep front of mind, which is systems are much more flexible now. They kind of need to be. And so we're API integratable. So if and we operate a closed API. So if there's a contract management system or a larger GRC system or a procurement system that requires this compliance overlay, that's something that we can interoperate with and pull information in and out of through the closed API that I mentioned. So from a systems perspective, and again to kind of recollect back to that past question, when you're building solution sets, there's no reason to compromise anymore. You can choose the functionality that you want and have it interoperate. The same goes for managing stakeholders across organizations as well as stakeholders outside of organizations. So I mentioned that we have collaboration tools. Oh, and an API is that's the way the systems kind of talk to one another. So it's an interface. So that it's a way for the system to connect and basically interoperate with another system. It's a way to integrate. And then, yeah, and then there was another question: does it integrate with Office 365, or is a new custom API required? We do have the capability to integrate, but it is custom at this point. It really depends on the system that you're integrating with, but that's something that is very straightforward for us to do. So if it's something that that if you have a system you want to operate with, we can certainly take a look at it. And what I would also say on the people front, so being able to communicate and collaborate with the relevant stakeholders, we have administrative permissions that you can delegate out. You can delegate out entire assessments, portions of assessments, single questions, and gather that information back, whether that's a stakeholder that's internal to your organization or outside. And it's a nice way for you to make sure you are getting to the right stakeholder for the appropriate control sets that you're measuring against. And then is our role more from a forensic standpoint? Not necessarily. Our role is much more from a proactive standpoint. So whether, depending on where you are in your compliance journey and where your organization is in their compliance journey, it's a way to get transparency and insights proactively to make sure that you're making good decisions when it comes to risk. So it allows you to identify your compliance gaps and measure that against your risk appetite, so that you can make informed decisions out of the gate. It also allows you to move up the maturity cycle when it comes to compliance and continuously improve, not only as requirements change, but as the organization develops better practices and better processes. But it can also be used forensically as well. So if you do have an incident, you can go back and see who responded when, what the response was, and how it was handled. So there is something that becomes very valuable when you use a system for these types of processes, because you have a log, you have a record, you can see what the decision-making process was, and you can help figure out what might have broken down.
One more question in the chat window.
Yeah.
Come in as fast as you can answer.
Yep. Yeah. So what about in-house preferences? What about in-house preferences, custom compliance tools? Is the user able to self-admin, or is that OOS? So for us, we are able to host custom requirements. So in addition to the libraries that we maintain, we're able to build custom libraries and host them. So if you have your own set of requirements, or if you want to augment the libraries that we build and maintain, we're able to do that also very easily within the tool. Right now, we build those as part of our offering. We don't necessarily have a front-facing or a public-facing version of that, but we're able to spin those up very, very quickly. And so, so that's how that piece works. And is the user able to self-admin, or is that an OOS or out of scope? You can self-admin the roles and responsibilities. That's all you. You can drive it, but that relates to delegating out and managing, not necessarily building the assessments at this stage of the game.
I'm going to ask this question. It seems clear, it should be clear, I think, to all of us, how your technology background, legal background, and MBA background were all really important components, qualifications, credentials that you brought to the table when you started this company. You also did StarTech Accelerator program. That was a big deal too. But what did your background not prepare you for as a CEO of a startup? What was new?
So you asked me this in the interview, and I'll reemphasize it. It's the emotionality of the job. So if you have, if you've not worked in startup life, it is everything that everybody warns you about in terms of great days and worst days most of the time in the same day. And so when you're in corporate life, it's a little bit of a buffer. So the frequency of it might be like from here to here to here to here. And it becomes, or I should say the amplitude of it is here to here. But when it's yours and it's a small team and you're birthing a new technology, it is like here to here pretty regularly.
You're
but
off the screen.
Yeah, off the screen, off the charts.
Right.
And so it becomes part of your day to day. So it really stretches you. It really pushes you. You get to see what you're made of and what your risk appetite is. And I wanted to kind of also revisit one of the questions that you asked in the interview, because I do get asked, how do you juggle? Why do you juggle? Kind of one foot in the legal world and one foot in this. My response is there's no one way to do this. If you have it in you, and for us at InFront, entrepreneurism is very creative. It's very satisfying. It's a lot of fun, but it also comes with a lot of it could come with a lot of rejection. It could come with a lot of emotionality. It could come with a lot of non-linear aspects of it, because some days you leapfrog and then you go backwards and then you go forwards again. And the first part, they analogize it to kind of until you figure out your path exactly, it can kind of feel like you're drunken and stumbling around a little, and it's like that in real life. And as organized as you might be in your corporate career, and as linear and lockstep as it could feel, it does not feel like that in startup life at all. So if you go in with the informed portion of like, hey, I want to have this experience and understand that it might be turbulent. Yes, it will be turbulent, but that's okay. That's part of the experience, and it's also a lot of fun. And I want to encourage lawyers to, if they have it in them, to pursue them, to be able to go and test, and whether that's part of an accelerator program or an innovation program, go try it. We are trained problem solvers by trade, and so I do encourage, if you have it in you, to go do it. And there was one more question that just came through from David. Does the technology provide guidance as to whether risks are high or low, more serious, less serious? How does it do that? We do have the ability to create red flags. So basically gating items that if you get a negative response, that you know immediately in the report that this is a no-go. So you have that ability to kind of see it at the most top level where it is, but you also within our system can go super granular on question by question. And we have several different inputs for response sets, everything from yes, no, to multi-select, to open text. So again, this will help you make a much more informed decision as to where it fits within your risk appetite. So we've built that into the system, and we have the ability to adjust that in the system as well.
Hey,
Let's stop one last time and open it up
yes.
for general questions in case people are on the phone and can't type in chat window questions, just in case. We have 5 more minutes or so.
Yeah.
So
Time for a
anyone
last
want
question.
to type a question or jump in with an audio?
If that doesn't happen, I have a follow-up to your most recent comments, Melissa, follow-up question. So it sounds like you've been pretty fortunate in being with a law firm that either encouraged or at least didn't stop you from pursuing your entrepreneurial dreams. Do you, and when you just encourage lawyers to think more, maybe a little more entrepreneurially, which I totally agree with, whether they're an internal entrepreneur, as some in-house counsel are, or an external entrepreneur, and like people in your case. So do you think that the culture at both legal departments and law firms is changing so that, I think if you go back 10 years and you said, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur on the side, that could be a really bad career move.
Be career limiting.
Or career terminating potentially. Mm-hmm. So do you think that is changing or has already changed? Or is your law firm just a really rare example of a traditional player that will encourage or at least not deny people the pursuit of those entrepreneurial dreams?
So for me, when I went back from in-house to private practice, I went back very specifically as of counsel and very specifically flex time. I've been very transparent the whole time. I will say Ackerman has been wonderfully supportive, and I meet my obligations not only by being transparent but making sure I'm not doing anything that conflicts with my responsibilities at the firm. So I'm the guardian of that. I take that relationship very seriously and make sure that everything's kind of clear and by the books. I encourage if this is something that that you want to pursue and it becomes more than a side of the desk product or project, or becomes, for me, my process looks more like, all right, I'll have an idea. If I still have the idea in 3 months, I'll follow it a little further. If I still have the idea in 6 months, I will follow it with more attention and care. So when it starts to kind of get some legs and starts to really start to take some shape, I think that's when it's probably time to think through, all right, how do I make space for this in my life in a way that's very respectful to my obligations, including to my current employer, including to my family that needs me, including to whatever obligations you might otherwise have. And I do think we do borrow, Chris, probably from, we probably have intermillennial to some extent in terms of being able to see the benefit of having a variety of career opportunities, some at the same time, some on different days in the same week. It really just depends on how you manage it. But I've found that in the legal profession, it's oftentimes that we develop a lot of specialist skills. And that being the case, it's allowed for more room for more of a portfolio approach to having a career and more of the ability to have diversification in what it is that you do to drive your own satisfaction.
Fantastic. So David, I think we're out of time. So maybe the last word goes to you as the co-host for the. I think,
Melissa, your last answer was a beautiful way to end. That just kind of pulled a lot of threads together. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to Emma, your sidekick. public relations representative, Anna Smith, who did a great job pulling this all together. And thanks, Chris, for being our consummate host.
My pleasure. Thank you, David, and thank you, Melissa. It was a wonderful conversation, and I look forward to hearing more about future success of your company. And it's really been a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And because we have a nice intimate group, I don't always do this, but if you do have questions on any of the topics that we talked about today, or you want to follow up, you can reach me at Melissa, Melissa, at infrontcompliance.com, INFRONT, compliance, all one word.com.
And if you happen to have missed that, you could always email me, Chris at inthehouse.org, and I can do a quick email intro to Melissa as well. So thanks again. I'm going to turn off the recording and just thank you again, and hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week and has a wonderful weekend, a wonderful summer weekend ahead.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.